Overnight, chaos from coast to coast. More violence breaks out as protests take a turn for the worse. This morning, cities are waking up still under a curfew. Here at home, the protests continued for a third night. And tensions remain high after this moment caught on camera. The driver now charged with attempted murder. Our country is in a crisis, and fears mount as people pick up the pieces, wondering if more violence could come again later tonight. We continue our coverage this morning.
And we begin this morning with police looking for whoever gunned down a man in East Bakersfield last night. It happened before 9 p.m. on Union and California Avenues. According to Bakersfield police, surveillance video shows a man in some kind of an argument with someone else. He got into his car to drive off, but the gunman shot him. Officers were alerted by their shot spotter system, which detects gunfire. This happened while protests were going on, but BPD says that's possibly just a coincidence.
At this point, it does not appear to be protester related, but we're still working all leads at this point.
BPD says the victim is a Hispanic man in his 30s. The coroner will release his identity at a later time. There's no information right now about the shooter.
It has been a weekend of raw emotion and at times destruction. 3 nights in a row, people marched out to protest the death of George Floyd, who died after a police officer pinned him by his neck in Minneapolis last week. These protests happened all over the country, and most of them peaceful demonstrations, while others spiraling into riots, with cameras capturing the violence, looting, and arson in real time.
The third night of protests started peacefully in Bakersfield, but things turned ugly overnight. A night that began with marches and speeches ended with police in riot gear clearing out protesters in downtown Bakersfield. BPD says protesters had begun throwing things at officers, including fireworks, leading police to declare the protest an unlawful assembly. We saw officers chasing down certain people and arresting them while forcing the crowd out of the intersection.
And 17's Taylor Schaub has a look at from the protests from overnight. This was the chaotic scenes from Friday and Saturday, freshly imprinted in the minds of protesters. However, on Sunday, it looked to be a reprieve from that, as only around 100 protesters peacefully marched nearly 2 miles down down California Avenue to MLK Park in East Bakersfield. The sentiment the same as fellow protests around the country, around the county, I should say, and they said they wanted to make sure they were seen and heard. However, around midnight, protesters became more aggressive with law enforcement, causing BPD to call for an unlawful assembly. 17 News photojournalist Juan Corona was on hand to capture the scene. Police pushed back protesters on Truxton back to L Street, and most of those protesters scattered. However, a few defied BPD, and officers arrested those who refused to vacate the premises. We want to reiterate that most protesters have been peaceful throughout the weekend, and as a matter of fact, many protesters were calling for peace.
This isn't just for George Floyd. A lot of people think that it is just for George Floyd. It is not. It's for all the lost lives that we have over here. We have a lot of people that have been murdered by BPD, and they have the highest murder rate over here as well. So it's not just for George Floyd. It's for all the injustices that our people have suffered. Ryan Silva, they had said that. Ryan Silva, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. There's so many people that we're here for. It's not just for George Floyd, but for all the other people that we don't know about.
In Bakersfield, there definitely has been instances of vandalism from over the weekend, but again, it is important to note that most protesters have been peaceful, and many of them are young people of color like Samantha, and they are all passionate about what they're protesting, even half a country away from where George Floyd died. It is unclear if there will be another gathering in downtown Bakersfield tonight, and we'll have more from Taylor Schaub coming up a little bit later in the show. And as Taylor mentioned, Sunday's protest started on a peaceful note. It began with a little over 100 people meeting at Mechanics Bank Arena, marching to Martin Luther King Jr. Park. Eventually, the protest made its way back downtown where things reportedly got out of control. And just to compare, police say they arrested no one during Saturday's protest just the night before. Almost nothing we saw this weekend matched the violence we saw on Friday. That's when 31-year-old Michael Tran allegedly tried to run over protesters by speeding his van into the crowd, which had as many as 300 people that day. BPD says Tran appeared to pass the crowd several times, even antagonizing protesters before plowing through. Many people captured the incident on camera and shared it to social media, and it went viral. Our own cameras were rolling when it all happened. BPD says Tran hit a 15-year-old girl who suffered minor injuries. Tran was arrested and booked on one count of attempted murder. He's due in court next Tuesday. Overall, 10 people were arrested on Friday.
Meantime, police are still looking for two vandals accused of spray painting "Kill More Cops" on the Bakersfield Police Memorial. This is what the memorial looked like after the protests on Friday. But yesterday, one man stayed in front of the memorial so that it wouldn't be defaced again.
These are fallen officers that died in the line of the duty, and for them to vandalize this, they had nothing to do with what's going on right now. It was very disrespectful.
Police say they're looking for two men accused of defacing the memorial. Take a good look at these pictures. Both men are in their 20s. One man's described as an Asian man with short black hair and with a tattoo on his left forearm. The other's described as a Hispanic man with long red and black hair and a ponytail. If you know who these men are, call police at 327-7111.
And the protests here were peaceful compared to what we saw in other cities, but businesses still need repairs after vandals busted windows and even looted some local stores. Bonnie's Best Cafe had to be boarded up, and locals started a GoFundMe account to help them pay for repairs. Meanwhile, the city's graffiti crews were out cleaning up some of the insults aimed at police, scrawled on several businesses and government buildings in downtown Bakersfield. Police say they're also investigating several reports of looting, including at the Sam's Club on Gosford Road, Rite Aid on 34th Street, and the Food Max on Chester Avenue. President Trump meets virtually today with governors and law enforcement about safety as demonstrations continue right outside his own front door. Tracy Potts has more.
A third night of protests and violence in the nation's capital. A small building went up in flames just across from the White House, where demonstrators kneeled, demanding action in the deaths of George Floyd and others who died at the hands of police. Officers used tear gas to disperse crowds gathered despite an 11 p.m. curfew. The National Guard, U.S. Marshals, and drug enforcement agents called in to help.
We are proud of our city, and we do not want our city to be destroyed.
D.C.'s mayor notes some of the protesters came from out of town. NBC News confirms that President Trump was briefly rushed to an underground bunker as protesters tried to climb over barriers outside the White House Friday.
Radical left criminals, thugs, and others.
We've also learned the president rejected advice from insiders and Republican lawmakers to tone down divisive language and empathize with peaceful protesters.
The president has a responsibility to help calm the nation, and he can start by not sending divisive tweets.
Instead, the president tweeted that the U.S. will declare the leftist group Antifa a terrorist organization.
We can't have these Antifa militant radicals who are traveling across state lines using military tactics to attack our cities.
Constitutional experts question whether the federal government has the authority to label a domestic group as terrorists for practicing their First Amendment rights to free speech.
On the weather side of things, it's a beautiful morning out there, and you can see the temperatures behind me. I've been kind of tracking them since the 27th, and you can see on the 27th we were at 104, on the 28th 105, we were at 98, on the 29th 83, on the 30th, and then on the 31st. Last year we were at 88, and this year we're at 83. So kind of keeping track of the temperatures and see how they relate to 2019. Let's talk about what we can expect today. And we've got a mix of sun and clouds out there to start off our morning, and temperatures running into the 50s and 60s for the valley, 40s and 50s into the mountains. Currently 43 out of Tehachapi, 58 for Lake Isabella, and 67 in Ridgecrest. And you can see on the satellite and radar, there are some clouds out there, and you can see more clouds streaming in from the west as well. So it's going to be a mixed day, that's for sure. And it's all because of an area of low pressure that's just to the southwest of us, and it's going to be somewhat stationary. So it will drive in some of those clouds throughout our Monday, and temperatures around the state, not bad. 76 in Sacramento, 89 in Fresno, 79 Los Angeles, 75 in San Diego, and then mid-90s out of Vegas. And widen things out, gives you a better perspective of that low that we're tracking right now. Again, I'm not expecting any rain in the short term here. We will track another system developed to the north and west of us. That may impact us a little bit, but you can see here on Futurecast HD, doesn't want to bring any rain, just wants to bring us an influx of clouds. So that's about all we're going to see. Now Friday, that may be a little change. We may see an isolated shower or thunderstorm, but we'll definitely be looking at a little warm up here after today. And then next weekend, we'll see another cool down. So kind of all over the place in terms of the forecast as we head into the start of June here. Air quality will be good for you today with an AQI at 45, and we'll call for a mix of sun and clouds. And 89 in Bakersfield today, 90 in Delano, 86 in Taft and Maricopa. For the mountains in the Kern River Valley, we'll look for a northwest wind 10 to 20, gusting around 40. 68 in Pine Mountain Club, 73 out of Bear Valley Springs, and then for the Kern River Valley, 80s, 84 for Lake Isabella and Kernville, Weldon at 81, and then for the desert, mostly sunny, a little breezy, a southwest wind 10 to 15, a high of 86 in Mojave, and still quite warm out of Ridgecrest at 93 this afternoon. So tomorrow, 96, mostly sunny Tuesday, Wednesday, and then on Thursday, 102, and then on Friday, some clouds and a slight chance of a shower and a little cooler back into the lower 90s, and then 80s return for the weekend. For the mountains, tomorrow I think we might see a little bit of cloud cover around the area, but still warm, 84, 87 on Wednesday, and then Friday, mostly cloudy, a 20% chance of a shower, and then a little bit breezy for the weekend, but back in the upper 60s and lower 70s. And that'll be the same for the Kern River Valley. We'll keep you into the 90s Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then a slight chance of a shower, maybe a thunderstorm on Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, we're looking mostly sunny and back in the mid to upper 70s. So definitely kind of a roller coaster in the sky cover and also our temperatures as we go throughout the next 7 days. That's Look at Your Weather. Maddie, we'll send it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Kevin. 6:12 is your time now. National Children's Day is 2 weeks away, and CASA of Kern County wants to make it a time to honor local foster children. These kids can feel invisible and lost in the system, so CASA is using a very colorful symbol to make sure they feel seen. You can sponsor a child and purchase a pinwheel to be displayed at the outlets at Tejon for National Children's Day on June 14th. There are roughly 1,500 children in the foster care system in Kern County right now. Court-appointed special advocates give voices to those children, making sure their needs are met and helping to fight to get them in a permanent home.
They are protected and they're confidential, and so we can't show their faces to the world, and that's understandable. But what we can do is virtually display our support of them by, sponsoring a pinwheel that represents each child.
To sponsor a child and buy a pinwheel, you can go to the CASA website. That's kerncasa.org. There are 34 children currently on the waiting list to get a CASA, those special advocates. If you'd like to give a child a voice, you can check out information on upcoming training sessions on the CASA website as well.